we were listening to a talk by Jyotish, and it's such a beautiful thing, but he just said, just that page alone, if you completely understood it, you wouldn't need anything else. Such an interesting thing. If you could completely comprehend and understand those words, it's that's it. Don't need any more. Pretty simple, huh? It's it's amazing. But before I started, really, it's our first gathering for the new year, and I really wanted to say a big thank you to everyone online here, those that aren't here. Just a big thank you from our hearts, because it's that joy and energy that keeps things moving. It's just amazing, and we've got so much gratitude for each and every one of you as dear friends, and also for the gratitude, the light that we're all sharing for this world. So a huge thank you for this new year, and may many blessings be upon you all for this new year and moving forward.
And as Jyotish said, let this be the best year.
And yeah, really amazing. And it's kind of an interesting, I'm not going to take too long with this, and I don't have a dad joke, so apologies for that. I haven't had much time, unless, I haven't got one. Apologies.
That's okay.
Good. We'll keep moving. And I'll be relatively quick. It's kind of an interesting concept when you start hearing these words, and then you think of how we manifest things, and we do. And, just hearing the words of that affirmation really make it clear, because really a word or the word or word is a thought that has to turn into a vibration to make a sound that gives a descriptive of what's there, if that makes sense. It's kind of a simple concept, really, isn't it? However, when you think of the manifestation of this, and we talk about a picture or a movie, or the manifestation of creation in itself, there had to be that thought that then projected themselves out to see what was going on. So if you think about that thought, then a vibration that then created, I guess, a sound, and then light. Because if you think about sound, first there was a word, it's essentially a sound wave that then has a frequency. So that sound wave then can be elongated and slowed down to create a different sound, or you can speed it up very quickly. And if you do that, what does it create? It actually creates light. Color. So each one of those things is that process in this worldly sense. So if you think about truth, first there was truth, and then truth manifested itself. So it's like the ultimate pyramid scheme, the pyramid scheme of life. God was those beautiful natures that you talked about before: the light, the sound, the love, the joy, the peace, power, and wisdom. And so that was the first creation. And then out of that, apart from that creation to solidity, was the free will that we've been given. So hence, then there's creations within creations. And if you think about it, it's kind of interesting, because if we were all based in that vibration of truth, we literally, again, you read those words, we don't really need to exist. We would just be a part of that. And there is scriptures that talk about, well, when we were created, and then we realized that we didn't want to be separate. So we just meditated and reunited. And then there were different layers upon creation and how that exists. So each vibration and each form is essentially that. So if you think about that as being God or Father, and then the Son as being the manifestation, so it's still a part of that vibration, but it's then created different ways. And we see it across the world. We see different vibrations in language, expression,
clothes,
everything, clothes, trees, plants, animals, across everything is a different vibration. And we see it at our level, which is kind of interesting, because I'm trying not to identify, but was born in Australia and was brought up in the vibration of "G'day, mate." and beautifully married to a Californian that, you know, was brought up in a different vibration. Just think of the words mum and mom.
Mom,
Just
kidding.
Mum. But again, how interesting is that when you think about that, even just across the planet, the same words, same meaning, we all know what it is, but spelt differently, or that reaction. And so underlying all of that is what we're talking about, that vibration of truth. And when we're talking about the word and reuniting with that vibration, we're trying to get rid of all the others. And these amazing avatars and gurus that have come back have found that right radio wave. They've gone back to that truth. And that's their attunement back to that truth. And for them to even come down and communicate with us, they have to have access to all the little vibrations and be able to attune in and feel and do and be a part of this. And you know, if you look at Yogananda, at some point he would be stumbling and falling and his knee propped up, and he'd be like, "Oh, hold on, I'm in all bodies." I can imagine that. I just have to find which one I'm in now. And you can think of that taking away this solidity that we're in now. But if you think about light and vibration, you know, anything's kind of possible. So I thought I'd start with just really painting that picture of Father, then Son, and then, you know, what else is in that creation. And when you think of how the universe was created according to the Christian scriptures and Hindu, it's the truth behind it all, which is that initial elements that have come out, and then we've sort of separated. And then, of course, our little egos get in the way, and we start arguing about what our different vibrations are. And, you know, that's, I think Jyotish used, you know, that's red, no, it's orange. No, it's red, no, it's orange. And then we create these different vibrations, and that's the disharmony that can be created. But underlying all of that is the truth that we're seeking.
Thank you. So today I thought, since it is the birthday of Yogananda, it would be a fun
to sing.
We'll do that as well, but later. Just to think about, you know, the people who came to Yogananda in his life and who ended up staying with him for years in the ashram or living out in day-to-day with business. So we have two lives that I'll kind of share with you. One is named Sister Gyanamata. She was the foremost woman disciple. And what does disciple mean when we share that word? It just means that they received their guidance and inspiration from Yogananda by attuning to his vibration, his spirit, as a channel for light and to guide their light. And so we also have the story of Rajasi Janakananda, and he was the foremost male disciple. And what we mean when we say that is they were very, very attuned to the vibration of Yogananda as a wise, joy, and love incarnation of spirit. And Rajasi is a little interesting because he was a businessman who was, in this day and age, would have been a billionaire. And he found Yogananda during a talk, during his lecture series where he'd go across the country. And he was riddled with anxiety, like shaky. He had a lot of, he would try to nurture himself by eating a lot. And he had all of this overwhelming feeling all the time because he was running these giant corporations, oranges, he had a big crop, he had insurance companies. He had started off in the railroads as well, building train systems across the country. And he had started quite young. But as soon as he met Yogananda, he used all of that focus and power that he'd created and practiced throughout his whole life as a business person, and he applied it to the path. And because he did that, Yogananda said he was so concentrated on a new habit or a new way of thinking or a new practice. Like, think of how distracted we let our minds go when we meditate. He said he was so focused that he just went like that quickly. So if you think of the image that we're given of Arjuna with the bow and arrow, and he just, that focus and concentration, one pointed. And, the true definition of meditation is one-pointed concentration on the divine, an aspect, or listening. But that means none of your thoughts are blocking the whispers. And I just always love to share this, especially with people new to this book. But Yogananda said to know him, you should read his whispers. And they're his poems and prayer demands, but they're beautiful. And that title in itself is Whispers from Eternity. It's God's always communing with all of us through our loved ones, through things that happen to us in our day, and through nature. And in fact, I think many of us have had a story where you felt a voice just kind of pop in and it tells you something important, like look to the right because a car is coming, something like this in your daily life. But again, when we meditate, we're practicing listening. And when we do that, we can attune to what the guidance is for us to live in that state of less ego and more higher self. So being able to feel and intuit the vibration of what is trying to happen. And Jyotish, he gives this amazing example of how to think of karma. He said, we're all on a train. Well, actually, it came from Ananda Ma, for those of you who know her, the joy permeated saint. And she said, you're either in the front of the train or the back of the train. And what does that represent? The front of the train is like living here with everything on the train ride and experiencing it with joy as the observer, which we've talked about a lot this weekend, versus being in the back of the train, which is like, this is so hard, feeling the weight of things and going in the lower, letting it go, as we say, down and out, rather than inward and upward. And so she said, eventually you get to the same destination, which is freedom. But the ride can be either from here or back here. And that's where our free will comes in. That's actually our free will. Swamiji said the karma that we're experiencing in our day-to-day is so deeply embedded that it's like it might even choose what color you're wearing that day. Like if, or what mala you pick out. It's these habits and ways of thinking and the vibration we've had over many lifetimes. But we were given from that core vibration of Om free will. But think of all the beauty in this world now from that moment, even in nature, all the different species that have evolved. Everything is so unique. And yet we're all returning to that same train stop of, liberation, enlightenment, freedom. Moksha is another word. And so we have someone like Rajarsi Janakananda, who he applied energy. And through that, he achieved joy and could meditate and be in that state of samadhi, which is, the oneness and expansion, unity. The words that Yogananda uses a lot are cosmic consciousness. And then we have Sister Gyanamata, and she lived with her husband and son, and her husband was a professor, and she was at home with her son. Rex was his name. And the three of them ended up, again, similar kind of story. Through the lectures, the son and dad had been able to see Yogananda, and Sister Gyanamata, she had a different name, of course, had really wanted to meet Yogananda, and he ended up coming over to her house. And the place where he gave her first blessing, she placed flowers there and created a sacred place from it. But she was tested in different ways. So Rajarsi Janakananda always wanted to come back to the ashram. He didn't want to be out there doing all the businesses. And one of the things he did to integrate the teachings was actually lead a meditation group from where he was in his town in Kansas. He also had a wife who was not on the path and actually really did not like him meditating. And so he would go to his office and put up a sign that said, "In a meeting." And he kept that sign up so he could have his time for Kriya. And he just always blocked it out on his calendar. And he said because of that, he'd be in these board meetings with these, big macho business people. And he would get this insight, and come up with solutions. And he always attributed it to his practice, his meditation, being able to listen. And then we have Sister Gyanamata, a similar story, wanted to be in the ashram, but her dharma was her family. So she stayed at home And then in the later years, I think she was in her 70s, and she was starting to have physical health problems. And she talked to her husband, and they decided that it was time for her to go move into the ashram with Yogananda. And from there, her tests were different. It wasn't about so much the energy, but the devotion. And so she was tested more like with pain and suffering and physical karma. But Yogananda said, she is, I know Raul's your favorite example of this, but yes, Divine Mother, yes, I will face this karma. And she always rose above it. Again, using the energy and the path, this path of Kriya Yoga that helps us to let energy flow through us and use it to become free. And at the end of her life, which she was at that time, had very really painful open sores, and Yogananda had to be away because he said, if I were there, I would have told Divine Mother to keep her here. And so he had to be sent away. Divine Mother said, no, it's time for her to leave this body. And at her final words, she just said, joy. There's so much joy. Too much joy. Yeah. Too much joy. And if you imagine that with that life, the life of integration of this path and learning to do something so subtle as or Hong Sa, we are transforming our vibration all the time. We're transforming it now by being with each other, ringing bells, meditating together. It's actually amplifying the joy and the light and expanding out to lots of people, even the kids, like when we were making music, they were doing their thing. And then when we started meditating, they got really quiet. But think of even the neighbors and even the community. And then you think of all of us going out into our communities and Alice Springs and Brisbane and different parts of Sydney and Melbourne and Blue Mountains. And all of you, different places where you all, Byron Bay, Newcastle.
Tasmania.
Tasmania, definitely. And so you just think of all of that vibration. That's how we change the world. And that's something that we watched the movie Finding Happiness last night. And Swamiji was saying, it does not take that many people to change the course of history. He said there were just 12 disciples of Jesus. And he said, and one of them, wasn't at the end there. And then,
Betrayed.
Yeah. And you think of the Renaissance in Florence, Italy. It was just a small handful of artists, but they changed all of art at that time. And, part of what Ananda can do is just by helping people learn how to control their energy and do the right thing, go to the front of the train, and think of how that just spreads. There's lots of fun research now about, even when you smile, it makes other people, we go out after this and it can help another person's day just light up and saying something positive to another person. So just remembering that as we kind of did this morning with our meditation, where we visualize this candle of light that we're holding, and then we're going out to home after this and starting this new year with this light. And every time we start to notice it dim, just be aware and change what you need to get to the front of the train. Be cognizant of that, and then just continue to go. And I just thought I'd kind of end with this amazing blog that came out on Friday from Jyotish and Devi.
While you're doing that, I just wanted to give an example of what you're saying, because I know what's in there, but I don't know if you notice, but when you get together as a group and we Om together, the difference between when we first get together and when we're in the end, it's like we're all attuning to that vibration. And when we all have retreats, you'll start seeing that tiny little thing. Just around at the beginning, it sounds like a couple of herded cats, and and then by the end of it, it's like this beautiful sound of together.
So the title of this blog is Pay Attention. That's really simple, right? Pay attention. And again, that is learning to control your energy, but as focus. So thinking of Rajasi, who was concentrated. So he said, if you're trying to change behavior, so thinking again, I want my candle light to be strong. What needs to happen so that it can stay, as light as possible? and never get blown out. Concentration, commitment. He said a strong enough intention can instantly create or destroy a habit. So again, that's why we shared about Rajasi, because he did that. And he made extremely quick progress on the spiritual path because of it. And repetition. And we talked about that a bit during our workshop this weekend. And he said, every thought and action is like a vote, which elects who's going to lead the good or bad habits. He said, and don't forget, you cast thousands of votes every day, if you think of how many thoughts go through. But this is the best one to end with. It was perfect. He said, enjoyment. So if you think of the four: concentration, commitment, repetition, and enjoyment. Why? He said, changes come quickly when they're fun. So don't forget to, have fun. And as we do carry our little candles out into the world, remember that you have lots of friends to remind you of the lightness as well, to go to the front of the train, so that we can carry that spirit into this planet, especially now. So thank you all so much for being here today, and for listening, and for carrying your light. And we would love to do some more music now, just as a way to let things go more deeply before we have our little break. Anything else you want to add?
Maybe we could talk, if we stop recording.
Do a few announcements.
Yeah.